Welcome to Oklahoma Real Estate Radio, the podcast for industry professionals who want to be in the know. I'm your host, Christy Gillantine, and join me as I talk to the best in our business as they share valuable market insight, offer solutions you can use now, and share local information you won't find anywhere else. Thanks for joining, and we hope you enjoy this episode. Hey everybody, welcome to the Oklahoma Real Estate Radio Show. Today I've got with me Pete Reese, and he is talking today about flipping land and how we can look into that in our market here. So Pete, welcome to the show. I'm so glad to have you with us today.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me, Christy.
Awesome. Pete, tell us a little bit about what got you started in real estate and how you are where you're at now flipping land.
Sure. It's been quite a journey. I started out with a lot of people buying our first home, and that's myself and my wife. And I think the year was 2000. So I guess that's quite some time ago now. But we bought it, a house here in Southern California, bought it with an FHA loan, 3.5% down, low down payment. And we held it for about just over 2 years. And we made about $50,000 on the deal. And we thought we were the real estate moguls at the time. And it's simply, we did some minor renovations. I did a lot of the renovations myself, questionable quality, but they did get done. And the house value was improved after the 2 years. So that was great. We actually then took that money and rolled it into another house that needed a lot more work and did more renovations, improved that one a lot more, got involved in flipping homes. So we were doing that for a while in the 2003 to 2007 time period.
Okay.
So we learned a lot from that, had some really successful deals that worked out great. And then here in California, the market completely crashed. I know in Oklahoma there, it didn't really crash like it did like where we are, but things fell off a cliff. Values went down 50% overnight. So we knew that kind of flipping homes really wasn't the best market to be in at that point. So we then transitioned. I got my broker's license, luckily, before the market crashed. And then I realized, hey, the only thing that's really selling right now are these bank-owned properties. So I focused 100% on just getting as many contacts as I could with the banks that had these foreclosure properties to list. And that was my sole focus for about 2-3 years, something like that. And
did you buy any of those properties during that time?
What's that?
Did you buy any of the properties during that time?
No, I was solely focused on, I was shell-shocked in a way because we were investors, and that's how we got into the real estate thing initially. And then it just scared me off to see how the values went off a cliff overnight. And in hindsight, that was the best time to buy when the values were so low. But I was too in the middle of it, and I couldn't see the forest through the trees, I guess. So, so I should have been, and it would have been great if I would have been buying those properties then. But instead, I was helping a lot of other investors get the deals of a lifetime. So it is what it is.
I'm sure you learned a lot through that process, regardless if you were buying property or not. Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah, it was a crazy time. Just a lot of craziness. Being an REO broker or a listing agent for banks is no walk in the park. There's a lot of emotions involved. The first thing that happens is you get an email from the bank saying, hey, here's a new assignment. What is the occupancy status? You have to go to the property, see if someone's still living there. If they are still living there, make contact. And a lot of times, especially then, the homeowners didn't know that the home had actually gone through the foreclosure process.
Wow.
Yeah, many of these people were in the middle of a loan modification, trying to work things out with the bank. And these banks were so overwhelmed. Their communication was just terrible with their clients. And so it was a bad situation because I was the representative of the bank. And in reality, I was just a listing broker for them. Maybe we went off on the tangent here, but it was a crazy time for sure.
Yeah. You transitioned to a broker, and you were basically leaning in on the foreclosure properties during that time.
And then I started working with a lot of investors that I had met through there. And for a while there, I just transitioned into just finding them deals. See, I knew what they wanted. I knew from the investor side, like what they were looking for and what would make a deal for them. So I was staying very busy just finding them deals. There was a lot of potential deals on the market at that time. And I was just spending my time being a buyer's agent for them, finding as many distressed properties as they could get their hands on. So I did that for quite some time. I transitioned away from real estate for a number of years, working with a business with my wife on blogger and travel blogger training programs.
Okay.
And that was all consuming for a number of years. And that was a great business, and we still have that business, but knew that my real passion was real estate. And then I just started doing a lot of research I knew I needed to get back into the investing side of things. I was doing a lot of research and trying to decide what model I was going to go forward with and what I was going to do. And I was reading a number of things about land investing and land flipping, and saw some people that were being pretty successful with it. And I thought, well, that kind of matches really well with my skill set, I thought, because it's simply about buying and selling quickly and for a profit. And I felt like I was pretty good at identifying value and determining what's a good deal and what's not a good deal. So I learned everything I could about it then. And that was in December of 2020 as when I started looking into it. March of 2021, we resold our first property using this model. And we ended up in 2021 doing about 1.2 million in revenue and about 50% gross profit margin. So on average, we're buying a property and we're trying to double our investment on that after all fees and commissions and everything. And then in 2022, we ended up at about 3.5 million in revenue and it's about roughly the same gross profit margin. 2023, trying to do about 10 million. And I think we can make it happen. Yeah.
So when you first started, were you starting your purchases in California or were you looking outside of the state?
We have done mostly everywhere else except California. We did buy one property in California, but for the most part, we're buying in other areas. And most of the time, we never even see these properties. At least myself, I don't see these properties. We do send people out to the property and do our due diligence, but I'm not actually physically walking on the properties that we buy, which is interesting.
A lot of Zoom, a lot of FaceTime.
Yeah, there's some great apps now. You really can tell a lot about a property right from your computer screen, which is cool. But we always take that extra step and we hire someone to go out to the property, walk it, and get us a bunch of pictures and video and all that kind of stuff.
So how are you identifying these properties? I know we talked a little bit about that last week when we got together. What's your process as far as finding potential land?
All of our leads are generated by sending out direct mail. And we start with pulling a list. And these lists are all based off of county data, which is all public data. We use a service to compile that list. It's called Data Tree. It's with First American. It allows us to really get kind of granular on these searches, as granular as you want. Personally, we don't try to weed out too many people. We just look for the types of properties we like. So for instance, in a lot of these areas, we're buying 10 acres or more, and we're buying in particular counties that have some decent activity. There's things buying and selling. Look at those kind of things. We also scrub out of our list sellers that we know that would not sell to us, like the railroad or a utility or the city or a county, something like that. So we take all those people out of our list, but then we just send out a bunch of letters and then we see what comes back.
Nice. Do you have a response rate we may have talked about that too? Response rate on that, do you think?
The interesting thing is I don't really track the response rate, and I'll tell you why, because we actually send out offers. So these offers are based off of averages for a particular county. And depending on what type of percentage of retail price I put on those offer letters, our response rate will vary considerably. So the main metric that I track is cost per deal on average over time. And we've been able to average about $3,000 in direct mail costs for every deal that we do. And on average, we've been averaging about $22,000 in profit per deal. So I'm happy with
So you're just basically making sure that return on investment works numbers wise. You're not necessarily tracking the actual. That makes sense. Yeah, you're tracking the actual number, the cost.
Yeah, cost per deal. And that's the main thing I look at. And the interesting thing about it as well is that the responses from county to county, from area to area, really vary for some reason. And but the cost per deal kind of is very similar. So I don't know why or how that works, but it does.
Wow. Okay. How do you determine when you find a piece of land? How do you determine the value?
Yeah, we go through a whole process. Mainly, the main thing we're looking at are comps, trying to see what similar properties have sold for in that area recently, within the last year primarily. And we're looking for also what's on the market as well, competing properties that are on the market and what the inventory is like in that area. If there's a ton of inventory in that area, we know we're going to have to be more aggressive on the price in order to resell it quickly. And that's part of our model. We buy things and resell them within 60 days on average. We're not trying to get top dollar. We're trying to price them at an attractive price so the end buyer will be interested in that. So
make a move. Is that kind of your goal, is to get it under contract within 30 or 60 days?
Yeah, we try to get it under contract within 30 days so it'll close within 60 days. Yes.
Smart.
As quickly as possible.
Okay.
I like the ones that we list and then they are under contract in 2 days. So that happens a lot.
We all do.
Yes. I wish they could all be that way. Yes, but they're not.
What's the most profitable type of property that you flip, or is there something that, you really enjoy doing as far as that goes? You see something that's a certain type of property and you're really intrigued by that?
Yeah, I love the properties that actually, I guess the best way to put this is they're just nice properties. If you look at the pictures, you look at the pictures of like, boy, this is a nice property. It's got nice trees. It's got a lot of road frontage. It's not on the side of a mountain. It doesn't have swampland. It maybe has a stream in there. It's something that you would walk on and just say, oh, that's a nice property. And those properties always sell right away. And I don't know what it is. I guess it varies for a little bit from area to area, but the nice properties sell right away.
So something easier to develop, it sounds, potentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And a lot of these properties are really in rural areas, and they may not be ideal for a residential subdivision or anything like that. The primary use of many of these properties that we're buying and selling are potential home site for someone, or maybe just a recreational property. Or maybe they buy it as a recreational property with the intent of potentially building on it one day. So that's what a lot of these properties end up being.
Okay. The buyers, are they generally just another individual, or are we talking businesses? Are you dealing with individuals mostly on the purchase side?
Mostly individuals, yes.
Okay.
And we also use agents to list all the properties for us, local land brokers. So we don't have a lot of direct contact with the buyers, but from what I can tell, most of them are simply interested in purchasing as a recreational property or a potential home site at some point.
Okay, interesting. You mentioned that you work with agents, especially since you're out of the area and you need that expertise where the property is. When you're looking for an agent, what are some of the things that are important to you in finding the right agent to list land?
For land, it's really important that they specialize in land for us, because we always look for the top land broker in a particular area, because it seems like they normally have a great buyers list. They've got people looking for land in a certain area. So the good ones can get a good property sold right away, even before it goes on the market, or have activity right away at least. So
Gotcha.
If they specialize in land, then they can really help us out with our potential valuations on the property. What do we think we could sell it for? We always loop in our agents that we work with into the process when we're buying a property, because we want extra set of eyes on the property, or looking at the potential and making sure we're on the same page. So it really does help in our process. And then they get the listing when we resell the property.
Yeah. And I'm assuming you're working with a lot of these agents. Again, they're bringing stuff to you potentially, or?
Well, we don't really get a lot of deal flow from the agents that we work with, but when we do find a really good agent, then we really try to focus on that particular area and get as many deals as we can. And we also refer deals to them on, sometimes we just can't come together with the seller on the price. And those are good ones where we can just send it over to our agent partner. And we don't even ask for a referral fee or anything like that. We view it as a good agent is part of our team, and it's a win-win situation. So that's the way we look at things.
Yeah, that makes sense. What are your thoughts on the Oklahoma market? And obviously you're looking to potentially purchase here in 2023. So what are your thoughts on our market?
I think that there's a lot of room for land investors to probably prosper in Oklahoma. We haven't personally done any prospecting or sending any mail in Oklahoma, but it's definitely on our list. I think that there's a lot of areas that kind of meet our general criteria. We're looking for properties that are, or areas that are a couple hours outside of a major metropolitan area. That's close enough for people to drive out and use as recreation on the weekends or something like that. And those are the properties that seem to sell the best for us. And like I said, we're trying to do 10 acres or above. So I know that there's a lot of larger tracts definitely available in Oklahoma.
There is. And people do love their recreational land out here.
Yep.
For sure. Talk to me about how you finance these flip projects.
For the most part, we actually purchase them with our own cash.
Okay.
So we've been doing that on most all of our deals. There have been a couple of larger ones, 2 that we already bought and sold, and then a new one we just partnered on that are larger dollar amounts, where we have actually worked with a partner on them. And kind of the deal with the partner ones is that they bring the money to close the deal, to purchase it, and then we split the profits when it resells. So I bring the deal, they bring the money, I manage the whole process and get the thing sold, and then we split the deal at the end of the day.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So
it's a win-win. I don't have to commit so much money to a deal, and I still get a great return on not spending anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I know that I've seen that done here. It works out well. Not necessarily in the land side, but on the property side, home flipping. And yeah, that definitely works out well for somebody who needs that cash flow, that capital to make that happen.
Yeah. And unfortunately, in the land business, there aren't any options for hard money lenders. They really don't exist. There might be some private individuals you could find to do something like that for you. But for the most part, it's either a partner or you do it yourself.
You're putting together a team.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And somebody's going to have the money.
That's right. Yeah, there's got to be a money part of the equation for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm assuming when you're looking for the buyers, obviously you're working really closely with the local agent to market or to their buyers. Is there anything that you're doing on your side besides that, or are you really leaning in on that agent partner?
We really rely on our agent partners. From time to time, we will list the properties on Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist, just a couple extra avenues to get some extra eyeballs on them. Facebook Marketplace used to actually be really good to market these type of properties, but for some reason, that's really seemed to dry up lately. I don't know. We used to get a lot of deals put together from Facebook Marketplace, but not anymore. So we're not really focused on doing that too much anymore.
Yeah, they tend to pivot the platform a lot, and then you
seriously, it changes
work around it.
Yeah, and they keep wanting me to spend money on ads, which I don't want to do.
Yeah. Okay. So talk to me about some of the challenges that you've had as far as some of the things that you've come across that maybe you weren't expecting.
Yeah, one thing that comes to mind is a property deal that I've got going on right now. It was a property that we bought for just over $50,000, and we put it on the market. Recreational property, 30-acre recreational property in the Northeast. Put it on the market and instantly had buyers interested. I think the list price was $139, $129, like $139, I believe, and got it under contract pretty quickly. And then our agent got a letter from an attorney saying that one of the neighbors saying that he didn't think that we had actual deeded access to the property for some reason or another. So anything we buy, we always make sure that there's deeded access if it's not on a public roadway, and we go through title insurance and all that stuff. Yeah. It's just stuff like that comes up. I don't know if the guy is just trying to be difficult or if he legitimately thinks that we don't have deeded access in some way or whatever. There's potential issues that come up. So we're working that out. I had to hire my own attorney to then contact his attorney and fight it out. But sometimes it's not all sunshine and roses, I guess you could say.
Yeah. It's got to be definitely a different set of issues that can potentially come up than a normal house in a subdivision type thing. Yeah. Okay. So you talked about it normally takes you about 30 days to go under contract. Have you had any problems? Has there been any issues in which you had something that maybe didn't move as fast as you were hoping it was going to move?
Oh, yes. Yeah. And in fact, right at the end of this past year, we sold a number of properties that were in our inventory for quite some time. One of them we bought in March. One of them we bought in April, I think it was. So those are way too long for us to hold in our inventory.
Yeah.
But sometimes a property will go under contract and then fall out, go under contract, fall out. Or maybe I was a little too optimistic and I priced the property too high and then had to keep chasing it down and reducing to the point where we actually sell it. But thankfully, haven't lost any money on any of these deals. There's been a couple of deals where I made $500 or $1,000, something like that. But those aren't losses in my book. As long as we're not going negative on any of these deals, I'm fine. And some of the deals are tremendous. It's just they get bounced out a little bit by a couple of the dogs here and there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
When we talked a little bit about like the access and the zoning that you just had that issue with, are there laws and regulations that you need to be aware of when you're working in big states, or are you just leaning in on that agent to walk you through that, or are you having to do some due diligence when you're dealing with different states?
Yeah, each state is different. Each state has their own stuff, I guess you could say. Some areas, things like oil, gas, and mineral rights are really important. Like you've really got to make sure you're doing your research on those things. Is there an oil and gas lease on the property? Is there mineral rights that someone's leased? Or are they even with the property still? Are they being transferred? And a lot of these things we've just found out from the agents that we're working with. That's why I'm really a big I'm really a big proponent of using agents in this business because I know a lot of investors, that land investors, they'll just try to save that commission or think that they can market something better, something along those lines. But I don't know everything about land, and each area is so different, and it's really important to work with someone that knows what they're doing, and they can review everything and spell out any potential issues for you. So I think it's really a big thing. We've had, most of the times we've been able to avoid those type of issues, but we've covered them as we're purchasing some of these properties. Oh, I didn't know there was an oil lease on this property, or I didn't realize there's an abandoned oil, or who knows. But lots of different things like that come up.
And this is an oil and gas state here for sure. Definitely something you want to keep in mind.
Yeah.
In Oklahoma. That could be very valuable.
Yes. Yes. Do you have a lot of people that sell them without the oil and gas rights? And
so if you're looking at a subdivision, those are usually sold prior to even purchasing the house. So you're just buying the land and not necessarily the mineral rights.
Yeah.
So I had one that I purchased that was built in 1979, and it didn't come with the mineral rights. Like, it was given away way before that neighborhood was built.
Yeah, I guess you're not going to set up an oil derrick in your backyard anyhow, right?
Yeah. There's a couple. There's actually a couple neighborhoods. It's not uncommon to see a neighborhood that has one little fenced off section with a running oil pump, oil well there that maybe the original landowner had that still pays out, or not every neighborhood, but it's not unusual to see that.
That's interesting. Yeah, each area is so different.
It is.
Yeah.
Another thing that's interesting about Oklahoma is that we're all Indian territory, which means that the Native American, the 184 loans, you can buy that anywhere in the state of Oklahoma. You can use that type of financing if you're Native American.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. And we're the only state, I believe, in the union that's the full state is Indian territory.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah. So tell me about, you talked about some of the issues that have come up. Tell me about one of your more successful projects.
Some of the most successful ones have been ones where we'll do something minor in order to add some value to the property. There's one property in particular. I think we bought it for $37,000, and it was surveyed and had deeded access, but there was no actual physical access. It was completely grown over with brush. I don't think the access had ever been cleared. Big trees on it. It was just like a lot split, I believe, from a situation where they were inheriting the property.
Gotcha.
It was on paper. It showed that there was this 50-foot wide easement access to the property. Beautiful property, but you just physically couldn't get there unless you went through like the neighbor's driveway or something. We did. We bought it for $37,000, I think it was. I hired a crew to go out there and clear the brush, and I think it cost me $6,000 or $7,000. And then we ended up selling it for $115,000, and just simply because we did that simple thing.
Just prep the land a little bit.
Yeah, and just people aren't going to buy something unless they can actually get to it and walk around and maybe have people that can see that vision. But it's so much easier to sell something if you can do the basics and at least get people to actually be able to walk on the property.
So you're doing a little prep work on that then. You're kind of taking a look at it and saying, do we need to address an issue potentially?
Yeah, anytime we see something where we can do some little value add type things that really make sense to enhance the marketability, we will definitely do it.
Okay. You've been doing this for a minute. What are some of the common mistakes that people that get into this industry and flipping land specifically, what are some of those common mistakes that you've seen?
One of the big things is from just a property buying standpoint, I've noticed other investors really don't put in their time to understand what makes a good property and what makes a not so good property. So they'll buy properties that are questionable and maybe pretty tough to resell. So I see that a lot. The other thing I see a lot just is overall business thing in order to keep the business kind of churning and expanding like it should, is I see investors send out a bunch of mail to get the phone ringing. So they'll send out a huge batch of mail. They'll get really busy with responding to all the phone calls and the leads and everything, and they'll completely ignore sending out the next batch of mail. And it's just such a lead time until that starts picking up momentum again. So I think the big thing is from a business perspective is you've got to keep the mail or whatever market outreach marketing you're doing, you've got to keep that going out in regular intervals, regardless of how busy you are, regardless of what's going on in your business. You've got to have that kind of going on autopilot, or otherwise your business is going to be a constant roller coaster.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So you're constantly running that system in the background.
Yep.
No matter what you've got necessarily on your plate or coming up, because you need that potential
Deal
business
flow
coming your way at all times.
Yeah, it's a non-negotiable for me at this point. We're sending out 50,000 letters a month, which is a lot of mail. But every 1st and 15th, we're sending out a batch of 25,000 letters.
Wow.
I don't send them out myself. I don't lick the envelopes or anything like that. We use a mail house to do all that. But I send them the list so then they can send out the mail.
Yeah, you're leveraging that out.
And of course, they asked me to pay them for that as well. But
yeah, of course. Yeah, of course.
Yes.
Has there been a piece of land that came your way that you took a look at it and thought to yourself, this isn't going to work? And maybe tell us about why you came to that conclusion.
Yeah. And unfortunately, they're probably about 90% of the properties we pass on.
Gotcha.
And there's been some really interesting ones that have come across our desk. But like at this point, we're only trying to buy the good properties. A couple of them that I can remember really at the beginning of when we were starting to do this, I pull up my computer and I'm like, why is this? It's like completely underwater. I've had a number of those. I'm like, it's a lot. It shows, you can see the lot lines and everything, but you're like, it's underwater. I don't know. Maybe at one point it was land and then a lake or whatever took it over, but it's just funny.
Oh my gosh.
And I've heard of investors buying stuff like that, especially if it's in a bay or something like that. And then they buy it and they do stuff like oyster farming so I guess there's a use for every property.
Yeah.
But
that makes sense if they're going to oyster farm or use it for the water for some reason.
I bought a couple different lakes in our time. And one time it was a really interesting property. We bought this. I got this lead that came across. I think because we send out these offers and a lot of times we don't know what the actual property looks like. Mm-hmm. They respond and we check it out in detail. But it was, I think, about 30 acres and it was 90% of it was this lake. But it wasn't just a lake in the middle of nowhere. It was this residential subdivision, a nice one that was built around this lake and it had a little piece of land that went with it. And it also included the roads for the subdivision. So it was like a leftover parcel from this developer who I don't know why he ended up with it. You would think it would have been set aside in some homeowners association for the benefit of all the homeowners that were around this lake, but it wasn't. So this person ended up with it. And I think I'd offered an amount which was too high because it was a lake. And then he came back to me and he said, what amount would you buy it at? And I just threw out a low number. I said 10,000. And he said, okay, I'll do it. We ended up buying this lake for 10,000. I thought, I could probably sell this for 50,000. No problem. And what happened was exactly how I thought it would play out. We listed it with our broker and everything. Started getting calls right away from a bunch of the people that lived on the lake there and wondering how we got a hold of it and all this stuff. But we ended up they put together a little group of the homeowners.
Oh, nice.
And then they were the ones that ended up buying it. And I think we sold it for 35,000 or something like that. So it was a good deal for them, good deal for me. And interesting one for sure.
My goodness. He could have just approached the HOA.
It was interesting. They had no HOA or formal homeowners association at all. It was very, very interesting. But
that is strange. You just never know what you're going to see in this industry.
No, all kinds of stuff. It's exciting because you never know what's going to come across your desk each day. Really.
Yeah. It's opening Christmas for you, I'm thinking.
That's right. That's right.
Presents.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about when is the right time to buy or sell, especially right now. What are you looking at when you're looking at timing?
I don't really try to time things right now. I know that the market is odd right now and really a lot of people are concerned in what direction it's going. But I like the fact that in our business model, our average hold times are the 60-day mark. So it allows us to adapt pretty quickly. If we are buying properties and realizing they're staying in the market longer or there's just no demand for the properties anymore, then we can adapt quickly and buy at a cheaper price. That's really the ultimate goal. We could just hold out for a better price in order for us to move forward. When I was doing those bank-owned properties that we were talking about earlier, that was the worst market crash in any recent history, especially in California. And things were just selling like crazy. I would list a property and there'd be 30 some cash offers on it. The reason it was things were selling like crazy like that is because the price. The banks, they weren't really concerned about what the previous loan amount was on the property. They were just looking at the current market value. They had us give us opinion of what it's worth right now, and they would list it for that. And then there were a lot of investors out there, a lot of money on the sidelines, more than willing to snatch those properties up because they could see that it was going to be worth more in the future. So those were good properties, and they were just so. it's not like the activity really changed that much, especially on the investor side. It was just like the price is reset. So
Yeah.
I think of it the same way. If the market really takes a downturn in some of these areas, then I'll still be in the market, but it'll just be at a cheaper price.
You're purchasing on sale.
Yes. Yeah.
You talked a little bit about some of the liability issues. Have you come across anything like liability issue wise with the land?
Nothing, thankfully, that's really
Good.
become a major liability for us.
And you're not holding them long enough to really have that risk.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm always concerned about buying an asset that is more of a liability than an actual asset. Like we were looking at this one we were under contract to buy this one property, and then I got the pictures back from the photographer and the notes, and there's squatters on the property. There's a big broken down RV at the entrance to it. There's a neighboring property that has all these 55-gallon drums of who knows what on it. There's a creek running through the property. And I swear in the pictures, it looked like it had a green tint to the creek.
Wow.
Just like all these things, I'm like, that almost looks like a toxic waste dump. And
Yeah.
I don't want to be responsible for some sort of crazy cleanup process, or I don't know. So
right.
I'm always worried about that in a way. I don't want to buy a property that's going to be more of a liability than an asset. I'm probably too conservative when it comes to that, but I just don't want any of those problems. But I know they're going to come up at some point.
Yeah. And if you're buying all around the country, then you just never know what comes your way. So how are you staying up to date on the industry and finding your information on specifically land flips and things like that?
I try to be online and network with as many investors as I can. So I learn as much as I can that way. But we're also always staying in close contact with the broker partners that we work with as well, because they've really got their pulse on these markets, and we're trying to stay on top of it as well, especially if the market is shifting at all. We need to know if we need to adjust our purchase prices.
Good deal. Is there any books or any websites that you would recommend an agent look into that is wanting to help somebody like yourself get some properties going out here?
Yeah, that's a really good question. There are a lot of training programs out there for people wanting to get in the space as a land investor. Mm-hmm. There are resources out there for that, and specifically like on our website, I do a ton of income reports, I call them, which are basically every month I detail everything that's going on in our business, the revenue, the profit, all the deals that we did that month, and everything I learned along the way to give people insight of if you're thinking about getting in the land investor space, I think you could really see what's possible and maybe what you could expect yourself. As from an agent perspective, I think that the best way to do that would be to sort of maybe getting in some of these land investor groups on Facebook or online somewhere and just start networking, and you'll see them talking about deals in different areas and things, and maybe just chime in and say, hey, I'm in this area and I can help you with any properties that come up in this area. And a lot of land investors are like myself. They know that great agents are worth their weight in gold. They're looking for you as much as you're looking for them.
That's some great advice. Absolutely. And some people may have not even have thought of that.
Yeah, I think it's a really good niche. Personally, as far as what we do in our business, and I know not every investor is this way, but on all of our transactions, we're always paying 10% commission. Mm-hmm. So I want to pay at the top end and get great people to work with us that want to work with us and are motivated to work with us, and instead of trying to beat them up about the commission percentage.
That's great. That's great. Especially if you find the right person, you can keep doing more business in that area.
That's really the big goal. I don't want to do just a one-off deal. I want to do business over and over again.
That's where you get that profit zone going.
That's right. It makes all the difference. It really does.
Yeah. Yeah. What are your thoughts on land flipping and land investment moving into the future? What do you kind of see this industry moving towards?
Yeah, it's really hard to say. I could say for the immediate future, there's definitely opportunity there. Mm-hmm. And I don't see a situation where that opportunity is going to go away, but I can't tell the future either. So I don't know if there's something that I'm not even considering that will come and disrupt everything. Maybe some new technology or service or something like that would come up. I don't know. But I do know that there's opportunity right now. There's a lot of pieces of land in the United States, and there's always people that need to sell them. It's kind of with the car. There's always going to be people that want to sell their cars and buy their cars. So there's like always things going on. So it's just a matter of finding how you best fit within that system. And there is a need for our service. Our main thing is that we're able to close quickly and we're paying cash and make it as simple as possible. There's always an opportunity for people to list on the market and retail it themselves and maybe do some of those value add things that we would have done. But so it doesn't work for every property owner, but for some property owners, we're a good fit for them.
That's fantastic. Pete, I appreciate you joining me today for this. And I think this is going to be phenomenal information for our agents here in Oklahoma. And I really think that you're going to find some great opportunities in our state.
I'd love to. Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah. So I'm going to make sure that I've got your website in the show notes so that people can reach out and contact you.
Perfect.
And let's see what you can do here in Oklahoma.
That sounds great. Looking forward to it. Thank you very much, Christy. I really appreciate everything.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Oklahoma Real Estate Radio. If you like our show, please make sure to follow us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, whatever your favorite streaming device is. Also check us out on Instagram and Facebook, and we will see you on the next episode.